It starts with a convenience store receipt. Tuesday, 11:47 p.m. 1 onigiri, 1 canned coffee, 1 small container of tamagoyaki. Total, 680 yen. You fold the receipt and put it in your coat pocket because throwing it away feels like too much of a decision. And you've already made every decision your brain can handle today. You walk home in 14 minutes. You know it's 14 minutes because you've counted. Not once, every time. Your apartment is on the fourth floor of a building in Koenji that smells like mildew and old wood, and when you open the door, the silence hits you the way cold water hits skin. Fast, total, slightly painful. You are 31 years old. You moved to Tokyo from Edmonton, Canada, with 2 suitcases and the specific, unexamined belief that distance would solve something. You didn't name what it would solve. That's the first thing you should have named. Back home, your life had the structural integrity of wet cardboard. You had a job doing data entry for a logistics company, a studio apartment that faced a parking lot, and a relationship that ended not with a fight but with a long silence during a Tuesday dinner that neither of you chose to break. The silence lasted 4 months before she moved out. You replaced her with a succulent on the windowsill. The succulent died in February. You didn't replace it. You told people you were moving to Japan to teach English and experience something different. That's true, but the fuller truth, the one you rehearse at 2 a.m., is that you were hoping to become a different person by standing in a different place. Like the geography would do the work your will couldn't. But you don't know that yet. Right now, you're still in the airport at Narita, and the light is that particular blue-white that exists only in transit spaces, and everything feels like possibility, and you think, this is it. This is the reset. It is not the reset, but you don't know that yet. Your school places you in a Koenji apartment and gives you a laminated sheet of instructions. Garbage must be separated into burnable, non-burnable, plastic, and cardboard. Burnable goes out Tuesday and Friday before 8 a.m. Non-burnable the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. If you put the wrong bag in the wrong bin, your neighbors will leave it at your door with a polite, devastating note. The first note arrives in week 2. The kanji is neat. You take a photo and run it through Google Translate. It says, "This bag contains a plastic bottle. Plastic bottles go in the blue bag on the third Wednesday. Thank you for your understanding." There's a small sticker of a smiling frog at the bottom. The frog makes it worse somehow. You work from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. You stay until 7:30 because leaving at 6 when your Japanese colleagues stay until 8 feels like a statement you're not prepared to defend. You eat convenience store food 5 times a week. You study Japanese from a textbook with a blue cover. By month 3, you can order coffee, apologize for various things, and read a menu if you take your time. You cannot have a real conversation. You cannot make a joke. You cannot tell anyone in their language that you are lonely. And you are lonely in a very specific way. Not the loneliness of having no one around. Tokyo has 14 million people, and on any given morning, the Chuo line pushes 10 of them directly into your personal space. It's the loneliness of total invisibility, of being present in a room while remaining completely unregistered. Your coworkers are not unkind. They bow when you arrive. They say "Otsukara-sama deshita" when you leave, and in between, they conduct entire lives in a frequency you cannot receive. The only person who registers you is Koenji at the 7-Eleven on Omi Kaido. By month 4, he knows your order before you say it. Tamagoyaki, canned boss coffee, a melon pan if it's Friday. He nods when you come in. You've started looking forward to that nod with an intensity that embarrasses you. This detail will matter later. In January, during your 5th month, you find the app. It's called Family Romance, and the concept is simple enough to make your brain tilt slightly sideways the first time you read it. You can rent a person, any person, a father for a school event, a friend to accompany you to a party, a wife for the weekend. You close the app. You open it again 3 days later. You close it. A week after that, you're sitting in your apartment on a Saturday with the NHK news playing on the TV you never watch. The anchor's voice, a steady, calm hum that fills the room like ambient noise from a machine. And you think, I just want to eat dinner with someone who knows my name. You book a 2-hour session. You select companion, female, casual dining, Conversation. The fee is 8,000 yen for 2 hours. You have 240,000 yen in your account. The math is easy. The decision takes 40 minutes. Her name is Yumi. She arrives at the restaurant at exactly 6 p.m. Not 6:01, not 5:59. You'll think about this later and realize that a minute costs 66 yen. And she is precise about money in a way that looks, at first glance, exactly like consideration. She is 34, she tells you, and she grew up in Sendai. She likes hiking and old films, and she once tried to read Dostoevsky in Japanese and gave up after 100 pages. She laughs at your jokes, not loudly, but in the specific way that makes you feel witty rather than simply heard. She asks about your city in Canada. When you describe Edmonton in February and the way the cold is a physical object you have to push through, the orange smear of the sodium lights on the snow, she listens with her chin slightly tilted, and you feel, for the first time in 5 months, like a person with an interior. At the end of 2 hours, she thanks you for the evening. The bow is perfect. The eye contact before the bow is warm. You stand on the street outside the restaurant in the January cold and watch her walk to the subway. And you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. You feel seen. And the feeling is so unfamiliar that you mistake it for love, which is perhaps the most human error there is. You book her again for the following Saturday, and the one after that. By March, Yumi is a standing appointment in your calendar. Every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. You go to Shinjuku Gyoen when the plum trees bloom. You visit a small jazz bar in Shimokitazawa. You eat ramen at a counter place in Nakamaguro where the windows fog up from the broth. She remembers everything you tell her. Your mother's name, the name of your dead succulent, the fact that you were afraid of escalators until you were 12. Her memory is so precise that it takes you until April to understand it as a professional skill rather than as evidence of being known. In late March, at a Sunday market in Koenji, she stops at a stall selling small hardware accessories and keychains. She picks up a cheap acrylic keychain, a small, translucent disc with a dried flower inside, pale pink, pressed flat. It costs 300 yen. She holds it out to you. For your keys, she says. So you have something alive with you. You put it on your keys that evening. It clicks softly against the lock every time you open your apartment door. You stop noticing the sound the way you stop noticing your own heartbeat, which is to say, it becomes the sound of continuity, the sound of something that stays. This is the thing that will break you, but you don't know that yet. By April, the texture changes. It's small things first. You notice that when you try a new restaurant, a place you found yourself and didn't discuss with her, she responds to its description with the same calibrated warmth she applies to everything. There's no difference in register between her reaction to something you're excited about and her reaction to something she's legally obligated to find interesting. The enthusiasm has no gradient. You test this. You tell her a story you've already told her. The escalator story, your childhood fear, the same details in the same order. She listens with the same tilted chin, the same small sound of recognition in the right places. She does not say, "You've told me this before," because she knows professionally that sometimes people need to tell the same story twice, and her job is to receive it both times. You should feel caught. Instead, you feel something colder. You feel like a machine that has been successfully serviced. At night, the NHK anchor hums through your TV, and you lie on your futon and stare at the water stain on the ceiling. It's shaped like a prefecture you can't identify, and you think, does she go home and write notes? Does she have a file? Is there a document that says, escalators, mother named Carol, Edmonton, data entry? You book her for the following 3 Sundays that same night, because the alternative is to answer your own question. In May, you tell her you love her. You don't plan to. You're at a small restaurant in Yoyogi, and the light is the specific amber of late spring evenings, and she's laughing at something a stranger across the room did, and the laugh is unguarded in a way that feels different, more real, less managed, and you say it. 4 words. The English ones, because your Japanese isn't good enough for this. She stops laughing. The transition takes less than 1 second. What replaces the laugh is not coldness, and is not cruelty, and is not even pity. It is professionalism, which is the most devastating of the options. She sets down her chopsticks. She folds her hands. She says in the careful, clear English she uses when she wants to make absolutely sure you understand. I value the time we spend together. You have been a thoughtful client, but a session cannot be extended into a relationship. That is in the terms of the contract. And then she bows. Not a small bow, a real one. Deep and sustained, and you understand now? Final. The session ends at exactly 7 p.m. She leaves. You sit at the table for 11 more minutes because the check hasn't come yet, and also because you're not sure your legs will work. You see her 2 weeks later. You don't mean to. You're coming out of the Koenji 7-Eleven on a Thursday evening. Tamagoyaki, canned boss, nothing else because Friday isn't until tomorrow, and she is across the street. She is walking with a man about your age, maybe slightly younger, and she's laughing. The laugh sounds identical. Her chin is tilted at exactly the same angle. The man is holding a key ring, a small acrylic disc, a pressed flower inside, pale pink. You stand on the sidewalk and something in your chest does something you don't have the vocabulary for. Not quite pain. More like the moment when you step on a floor you think is solid and it isn't. That half second before the fall when your body understands the mistake before your brain does. The keychain on your own keys catches the light from the convenience store. You look down at it. 300 yen, the same object, the same gesture. Indexed and reproduced because that is what professionals do. They find what works and they repeat it. Because repetition is the architecture of care when care is a service. You walk home in 14 minutes. You count. You stand in your apartment and the NHK anchor is on the TV, and you can't remember turning it on, and his voice fills the room like water filling a container. Steady, shapeless, taking the form of whatever holds it. You've heard this voice every night for 6 months and you don't know his name, and he doesn't know yours. And that is, you think, the most honest relationship in your life. You take the keychain off your keys. The pressed flower inside the acrylic is just a flower. It was a flower before she touched it. It will be a flower after. The flower doesn't know it was meant to mean something. The flower has done nothing wrong. You put it on the table. You sit next to it. Outside, the vending machine in the alley makes its low, constant hum. A C-flat, you've decided, though you've never had music lessons. And the sound is the sound the city makes when no one is performing for it. When it is simply running, the way a machine runs, the way a system runs, indifferent and exact. You think about Yumi, and then you do something unexpected. You don't blame her. She came when you called. She gave you what you paid for. She gave you exactly what you contracted for, and not 1 gram more, which is an integrity of its own kind, even if it isn't the kind you needed. The thing you contracted for was the feeling of being known. What you received was a very precise simulation of that feeling. And the reason the simulation worked, the reason it worked for weeks, long enough to matter, is because the original is something you haven't allowed anyone to give you in a long time. The real thing requires you to be present in a way that makes loss possible. The simulation requires only payment. You chose the simulation because you could not bear the risk of the original. And now you're sitting in an apartment in Koenji with a keychain that cost 300 yen and the sound of a TV news anchor you've never met. And you are more honest about your own architecture than you have ever been in your life. The pain is clean. It is the pain of clarity, not of betrayal. Nobody lied to you. The contract was in writing. You're the one who read it as a love letter. You look at the keychain. The flower inside is still pale pink, still pressed flat, still something alive, preserved, held behind a barrier that keeps it perfect and keeps it untouchable. You think, that's me. That's been me this whole time. And then, and this is the thing you'll try to explain later and won't quite be able to, something in you settles. Not into happiness, not into resolution, into honesty, into the specific, uncomfortable dignity of knowing exactly where you are and how you got there. You are 31 years old. You are in a city of 14 million people. You are completely alone and you understand precisely why. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, the beginning of something, though it won't feel like it for a while. The vending machine hums. The TV anchor reads the news. Somewhere in Koenji, in a building that smells like mildew and old wood, A man sits at a low table and holds a keychain with a pressed flower inside and understands for the first time the exact shape of what he's been running from. Outside, Tokyo runs. Precise, efficient, equal in its indifference to everyone within it. It does not hate you, it simply doesn't know you're there. And for the first time since you landed at Narita, for the first time since the blue-white airport light and the feeling of possibility, that seems like enough to work with. The company Family Romance LLC has operated in Japan since 2012, providing rentable relatives and companions to clients across the country. Its founder, Ishii Yuichi, estimates they have fulfilled over 10,000 requests. Market analysts describe the industry as a direct response to Japan's loneliness economy, a documented social phenomenon in which 15.7% of Japanese adults report having no close friends. A 2023 government survey found that over a third of adults in their 30s said they rarely or never felt a sense of belonging in daily life. The rental relationship industry does not create this loneliness. It simply charges for something that used to be free. If this video reached something in you, subscribe. New stories every week.